How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and maybe YouTube. So tonight, I'm going to give you a little scoop of what I feel about old Eric Holder and the way he likes to lob these threats at Trump. Really, the reality is, folks, he's lobbing the threats. I got my cord hung up here. He's lobbing the threats at all of us. That's the reality. So we're going to discuss that, and I want to talk a little bit about Trump's foreign policy. I'm not going to go into specifics about it because I think a lot of these specifics, when they talk about foreign policy, are really things that have to come out as the foreign policy develops. But then I also want to talk about these about this $22 million program that they spent looking at alien spacecraft or something like this. I don't know. We'll talk about this. This ought to be a good show. And then we also got to share this, which I'll talk about that right now. Let's do it. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, stand by. I got to get this cord. Good Lord. I got a new extension for this headset. There it goes. But it was, man, that thing got hung up. I was like this the whole time I'm doing that. That's why I couldn't talk that whole time. I don't have a professional sound guy, so I'm like hung the whole time I'm talking like this, trying to lean forward. So okay, we got that squared away. So right now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to share my show. I haven't shared it yet, so let's make sure. If you're on Facebook right now, you want to copy the link, which I'm going to do, and I'm going to go to – I haven't talked people through this in a while, so I'm going to go up here to I got like 3 different pages on Facebook, and I'm going to copy the link, and I'm going to go to each one of those, and I'm going to publish it just to make sure that it gets on there to get shared. I'm not going to trust Facebook to share it for me. And let's see, I got one more here. And then I'm going to come over to you on Twitter. So one more here. Press, paste, and continue, and publish, and blah, 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 blah. So it takes a lot to get this thing going. Okay, so let's go over to Twitter now. And we're going on Twitter. And if you're already watching the show on Periscope, you're watching on Twitter, that's great. Make sure now that you go over to the bottom of the show. And in my case, it looks like that. You know, I'm on my main page. I know you can't hardly see that. And I'm just going to hit retweet. Boom. Retweet it. So now we're good to go. Now, if you haven't liked this page on Facebook, make sure that you click the like button. And if you haven't followed me on Twitter, make sure you follow me there. And then lastly, if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube page, let's see how many people we have on YouTube tonight. 19 people. You know, I didn't talk to, somebody emailed me today about YouTube, and they said that they hate Facebook and Twitter. They're not social like that, but they have, I believe they said Roku, and I didn't know you can stream Facebook, you can stream YouTube and their videos onto your TV. So this person, that's what they do every night. They stream this show every night when it comes on, onto their television. So I think that's awesome, and I don't know if you're doing that or not, but you know, eventually what's going to happen, you know, it's interesting. This show gets broadcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I have a feeling that one day 2 things are going to happen. We're either going to find a platform where we're at, and that's it, okay, and we end up taking the show off these platforms, or we just leave them on there, but everybody goes and focuses on one platform. I have a feeling that's either going to happen, or eventually this show is going to get picked up by a network. Now, that's my take on it, and if that happens, then that's going to be great for all of us, because what I'm going to try to do, if this show ever gets picked up by a network, what I'm going to try to do is incorporate the chats with the television show. Now, I don't know if whatever network ever picks me up, if that'll work, but what I'd like to do is have a special chat for the TV show that longtime listeners that we can trust, so there's no trolls, because we can't have people on regular television, you know, saying all these terrible, nasty things, vile things. So you would join a chat that your trusted member of the CQR, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force, and that chat would be shown on the side of the show, so that people can talk and see things, and you'd be on the television or across the bottom. Somehow we would get it to where we could have these chat sessions on there and increase the amount of people that are on there doing that. I think that would be really cool, and I think that that would be a way to change television and combine it with social media. Let's hope that something like that happens. Perhaps it will. We'll just keep doing what we're doing right now, and because we're doing it right. The numbers are definitely growing, and I can tell you this, folks. I have been completely, with the exception of Newsmax, And I really have not reached out to One American News like I should have, but I've been completely ostracized by mainstream media. There's no doubt about that. You know, I'm on the do not book list from Fox. I'm not going to go back. It was a mutual agreement that I wouldn't go back to CNN after I was a contributor there because I tell the truth, and that's not what they want. So that I'm fine with that. MSNBC, I mean, to tell you the truth, MSNBC, I have more respect for them than I do NBC because MSNBC doesn't play themselves off as anything but liberal. So I have more respect for that, and so I would go on to MSNBC to share this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. But this book has grown considerably because of you, because of word of mouth and because of radio and growing listeners on this show. And we were number one in 3 different categories. Right now, we're number one in, laugh or not, it was martial arts, violence in society, and safety and security. We're now number one in martial arts. I don't know how that is, but this is on Amazon bestseller list. And we're number 2 and 3 in violence, society, and safety and security. So those are all going to change after this week and next week because I'm going to be hosting Sean Hannity's radio show on Thursday, Will Cow on Friday, David Webb on the 26th and the 27th, and then Sean Hannity's show again on the 29th. I can guarantee you after the next 2 weeks, my book will be number one in all categories that it's included and will be close to at least the top 20, perhaps the top 10. So we are going to drive this up. And here's if you're interested in this, if you if you listen to Sean Hannity's radio show, and it's not just on Sirius XM Patriot, it's simulcast, so you can listen to it on terrestrial radio as well. The 21st, that's this Thursday, I'm going to be hosting from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., and we're going to have a Christmas special. And I'm going to have a bunch of different people on there talking about what they're thankful for, talking about, I'm going to have a historian to talk about what it was like for George Washington and his troops during Christmas in 1776. That's going to be amazing. And we're going to try to refocus a little bit on what Christmas actually is and the story of Jesus, and it ought to be pretty cool. If you're driving, it's going to be a show that you're going to want to turn on and leave it on. If you're at home, or if you're at work and you have ability to have your radio on, it's going to be a 3-hour show. It's not going to be 3 hours of short segments about different things. This is going to be a 3-hour show. And then on the 29th, when I host again, on Sean Hannity's radio show, we are going to have a year in review. So that ought to be pretty interesting as well because we're going to have an awesome lineup for that show. We're going to talk about the year in review for President Trump, for the military and intelligence, for law enforcement, and a year in review for the media and how they've just pretty much killed themselves. So it's going to be a very interesting 2 shows. And again, typically when you host 3 hours of radio, you're going to be hitting all the different hot topics of the day. But I'm going to try to focus on Christmas on the 21st and focus on the year in review on the 29th. So you all should enjoy that a whole lot. I don't do boring shows. I do pretty fun shows. So, and of course, as always, we take calls. But man, that show moves so fast; it's hard to get to all the calls, especially when you're getting 1,000 an hour. I think is what they say they get. So what I want to talk about today, so we got it shared on Facebook, retweeted on Twitter, and I don't know what we do over here on YouTube. And for everybody listening on Roku or whatever else you're listening to on television, I just want to say this as we get started. I want you to realize that now one of the reasons, again, I do this warning order for those people that aren't that familiar with this show. We do the warning order to kind of set the tone for the rest of the show, but quite frankly, the way it normally works out is that I start talking and it just all the different segments kind of go to crap and they kind of go together. But I think it's important to talk about the warning order today and lay out exactly what I'm focusing on this show. Again, as always, I try to focus on what the stories are behind the headlines, because on the news, mainstream media, when you turn the television on, you're going to get headlines and then you're going to get competing ideologies or competing narratives to go back and forth at each other, or in the case of like CNN, you're just going to get one narrative and that's it. Even on Fox News, more conservative, but they're also going to include the opposition so that you can get two varying positions on stuff. What I like to do is I think that the reality is with most of these headlines is that there's a headline, there's the way it's reported, and then there's the real story. And when we look at the case of what I put up here today for the title of the show, Trump's foreign policy, he gave a foreign policy speech. There's a headline behind that and its strength. When we look at what Eric Holder is doing in his tweets, I didn't have enough room to put it in the title, so I just put that he threatens Trump. But he's also threatening anybody who follows Trump, and he's trying to make it sound as though the majority of the country does not agree with Trump, and the majority of the country is going to trample all over the rest of the people if they don't agree with him. We'll talk about that. But that's the story behind that. It's not just that Eric Holder tweets or that Eric Holder is saying that it would be a bad thing if Trump fired Mueller. Eric Holder has continued to try to secrete himself into the news because he's a part of this deep state group. They use him. Trust me, it's not just Eric Holder. They're using him as a sounding board every now and then to push it out, and they'll use different people. Barack Obama is on a global tour doing this behind the scenes. Every once in a while, we get to hear exactly what he says, but the reality is he's going around undermining everything the president's doing. Although, to tell you the truth, I wouldn't exactly call it undermining as much as he is just going there. He's meeting with the people that feel the same way that he does. That's the reality of it. And then it's this UFO program that they had, spent $22 million. There's a story behind that. There's definitely a story behind that. And in fact, why don't we go ahead and start off? I'm going to do this backwards. I'm going to start out with the UFO story, because it's my show. It's our show. We can do whatever we want. So we're going to start off with the UFO story, and then we're going to flip it. And then we're going to go Eric Holder and then Trump foreign policy. Let's go to the A block, and let's do this. All right. UFOs. I don't know if you all saw the video of that. I can see if I can pull it up here. But apparently, there's the Department of Defense. Let me pull this up here. Let's see here. The Department of Defense has been, and I guess they said they stopped it now, but it had a. They've had a program. I'll go ahead and play this thing by CBS this morning. Let me plug this in, and you'll see what they're talking about here. Where they were looking at different aircraft and things that have been spotted.
Is correcting everything.
Okay. Let's see here.
Newly released video captured by U.S. Navy pilots.
Okay, I don't know why all this music is going on, but so this is from CBS this morning, and you can't really see it that well here, but basically, let's see here. So this is from CBS this morning.
Been reporting UFO sightings for decades.
Look at that thing. It's rotating.
This is one of the incidents the Pentagon's secretive group of UFO hunters investigated.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
This object appeared off the California coast in 2004 and baffled two Navy pilots.
It's not a drone. It's not something that we can easily say, oh, that's an airplane.
Okay, so this guy, first of all, I was just watching CNN a little bit ago, and of course, I don't know who this guy is, never heard of him before. His name is Luis Elizondo, and I guess he was in charge of this program. And by the way, Jody, thank you for this. I don't know if you've recognized this. Jody's been making different kind of tree ornaments for, I don't know, she said, since she was a young little girl. So I put it right here. She sent that to me. Thank you, Jody. So this guy is saying that he was the head of this program, and it was a secret program, and there's all these UFOs and this and that. Now, how can we, first of all, how can we trust anything that the government does? This program was earmarked underneath another bill for $22 million by Harry Reid. And Harry Reid's friend was one of the contractors that made the bulk of the money from this. So that's that right there at the very beginning of this whole thing sets the stink button on over 1,000, okay? $22 million. Harry Reid sponsored it in Arizona. Harry Reid's friend made a ton of money off of this as a contractor, and nothing ever came out of it except for this guy, who I have no idea who he is. A couple questions I have of this. Would this have come out if President Clinton had won? If we had a President Clinton? Is it because we have a President Trump that this is coming out now? I don't know who this guy is. Who's he loyal to? Everybody at that level in the government's loyal to somebody. Who is this guy loyal to? Do they know more than what he says? Because here's what I believe, folks. Based on science, which this guy, when he's interviewed, he talks about science, right? He continuously, I watch his interview, and he keeps saying, well, and this is what's very interesting about this, when he was on Aaron Burnett's show. He said, I stick by the science. I stick by the science. He kept saying, I stick by the science. And what the science says is that there are aircraft that we have encountered that don't meet the standards of what we fly. They can pull many more G's and do maneuverability that we just don't have, and these different types of things. But I stick with the science, and the science says that these aren't produced by anything that we know. Okay. Then when he's pressed a little bit, he says, even though he's sticking by the science, he says that in his mind he has no doubt that we're being visited by other creatures or worlds or something like that. Okay. Well, that's not what science is telling him. Science isn't telling him that we're being visited by other people. He even said that. But yet he turns around towards the end of the interview, he releases this little statement that he says, right? So here's what I'm naturally a little bit, I wouldn't say paranoid. I'm very hyper aware. And when anybody that used to work for the government says something that doesn't add up to me, or they say something, they're out there talking about information that for one reason or another is classified, highly classified, and it's now being released, I have to ask a couple questions. One of those questions is, why is this person out talking about it? Why is this being released? If they don't know what it is, why would the government release classified, highly classified information? Why would they do that? It makes no sense. Because, listen, I've been a part of the FBI, of the SEAL teams and military, different air marshal stuff. If you have classified information and it's highly classified and you don't know what the answer is to something, you don't release that information. You hold on to that information until it makes sense, or until you realize if it's a threat or if it's not a threat. And in this case, they don't know that. So, or unless they do know it and it's not what they're trying to make it out to be, and they're using this for some type of a deep state diversion, which very well could be. This could be a diversion away from President Trump. They could be working to where they're going to make something out that it's not really there. I'm not going to get into the religious aspects of this, because there's going to be people that automatically turn this show off and say, no way. I have certain beliefs, if you read in the Old Testament and things about, and my belief in how Satan will reveal himself, because I'm a Christian. I believe he's going to reveal himself quite potentially as some otherworldly creature. Who knows? I mean, he's the history's greatest liar, so he can lie and put it out however he wants. I believe that that's a real possibility. And when we say the deep state in government, these are people who think they're in control, but they're really puppets for a higher force, which is basically evil in nature. So I don't know what this guy's motivation is. I can tell you that there's no way that he's doing this by himself. I can tell you that secret programs don't get revealed unless they figure it out and it's nothing. There's nothing there. And I can tell you that $22 million, first off, isn't a lot when it comes to Department of Defense programs. One F-35, I don't even, those things are freaking massively expensive. I'll put it this way, one B-1 bomber is $1 billion. So $22 million in the realm of the DOD in a program like this, it's not a lot. So it's not like they gave it a whole lot of thought. I don't understand why the DOD convenes programs when they got fighter pilots. All they need is an analyst, to put an analyst on it. That's really all they need. That's perhaps what this guy is. They took the information, they collected it, and they made a report about it. That's probably the extent of it. Unless they were planning for a diversionary program. Remember, the DOD and the intelligence units in this country work closely together, and as we can see at the tops of the DOD, the FBI, the DOJ, the CIA, and all these other intel communities, and most government agencies, it's very corrupt. The senior executive service members are basically leftist, not even liberals. They're leftist, and they have gotten themselves through a series of maneuvers over the past, it could be 30, 40, 50 years. They have been maneuvering to a point where they basically own the upper echelons of Washington, D.C. These are not conspiracy theory things. This is the real thing. This is the reality, what the deep state is. And so I don't have an answer for this, but this is a good example of the reality behind the story. People are going to watch this. They're going to make their decisions. They're going to say, there's something out there. We're being contacted by other worlds. They're going to say, there's no way this is being set up by the government for whatever. They're going to say, this is the beginning of the end of the world, that these are the things that were predicted in the Old Testament or in the Torah, if you're Jewish. I don't know about any of that stuff. I don't know. But I do know this. Looking at this story and seeing it reported, I know a couple things from an investigative standpoint. $22 million, not a lot when it comes to a government-ran program. You're not going to get a lot out of $22 million. Harry Reid sponsoring this and his friend getting paid sends up huge red flags for me. And highly classified and all of a sudden released with no answers of what it is, shady. So these are stories that are just odd to me. They're just odd. And in 2004, who knows what this could have been? I mean, drones, the technology that's changed just in the way what SEALs use from the time I left in 2002 to now is remarkably different. So who knows what the technology is with groups like Boston Dynamics and Skunk Works and the things that they can do, behind the scenes. I was told by somebody a long time ago that the technology like at Apple and all these companies, they have technology that far outweighs what we have. They just make it, set it on the shelves, and then when they get to it, when this stuff starts to die down, then they bring out the big guns and they release the new technology. So I don't know who this guy is. Let me see what else he says.
Oh, that's an airplane.
Luis Elizondo ran the Advanced Aviation Threat Identification Program at the Defense Department. He believes the way that school bus-sized object moved defied the known laws of physics.
What we are looking at is truly beyond next-generation technologies.
Former Nevada Senator Harry Reid championed the UFO program, and some of the funding reportedly went to one of his donors, Robert Bigelow, founder of the military contractor Bigelow Aerospace. The Las Vegas tycoon spoke with 60 Minutes in May.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
Where exactly?
It's just like right under people's noses. Oh my gosh. Wow.
I'm human.
All right. You see, folks, I don't buy this stuff. I don't buy the way these narratives are painted and the picture that they are giving. To me, it's manufactured. I mean, trust me, if things like this were existing in the federal government knew about it, you and I would not know about it if it was real. And quite frankly, the reality is, if we definitely knew for sure in a secret program that there were other beings making contact with us that we didn't know about, somebody would leak that information. Now, on the other hand, again, like I said before, if there is an evil nature to this, then they're going to present this as otherworldly creatures to divert people from thinking about their Messiah being the president to the Messiah coming from another world. That's the way people think. Ultimately, as Robin just said, smoke and mirrors. And I know smoke and mirrors because I worked under it for many, many, many years in the government. So that is hopefully the fact that we reversed this today on the way that the title is set out. This is a good example of how the media works and how these twists and turns. People just think that because it's on television that it's true, or that maybe they're tweaking a little bit to make it look fancy. Folks, a lot of stuff that's in the media is absolutely fabricated. There's no law that says, look, they're not held to a law like I was when I was in the FBI, where it says you must do this way. You must be honest. You must say. There's no law there. There's no law that says that if they put up something that's completely fabricated, that they'll go to jail. Look, the Discovery Channel, which used to be all about scientific fact. I remember watching it a couple of years ago. You knew it was going downhill when they had an entire episode of a show about mermaids and how it was a documentary, but it was fake. But they never said it was fake. I remember watching that going, there's no way this is real. There's no way this is real. And it pissed me off at the end of it because it was fake, right? So, and this is the Discovery Channel. Had that been, the Sci-Fi Channel, that would have been cool. But this was the Discovery Channel. And I thought it was pretty crappy, to tell you the truth. So, anyway, let's go to Eric Holder and these threats that he has out there. And let's talk about the real story behind that. Let's do it. All right, so Eric Holder, let's see here. Which one came out first? So this was on December 14th of this year. Let's see if you can even see that. And so Eric Holder is saying, he's saying, first of all, Eric Holder doesn't speak on behalf of anybody anymore. He's not in the government. Eric Holder is, as far as I'm concerned, should be in jail. And Eric Holder, as far as I'm concerned, speaks for a very small group of basically leftist communists. The same thing with Hillary Clinton and the rest of her people. I saw Jessica Tarloff the other day. I told her I'm going to be very upset for her. I mean, I feel for her when Hillary Clinton finally goes to jail. She wasn't happy about that. But she's a very sweet person, don't get me wrong. But this is what he says. Speaking on behalf of the vast majority of American people, Republicans in Congress be forewarned. We should be forewarned. The Republicans in Congress should be forewarned, Eric Holder says. Any attempt to remove Bob Mueller will not be tolerated. That's a threat. That is a threat, folks. These are BS attacks on him, his staff, that are blatantly political, designed to hide the real wrongdoing. Country, not party. Okay. First of all, this is an entirely fabricated narrative that continues to be pushed out there by the Democratic Party leftists. This entire thing is party related. It is politically designed, and it is an attempt to further get the establishments back on track and around Trump, right? So automatically when you look at this story, it's a completely BS story, as he says right here. The only BS is this. Eric Holder is full of BS, and so is the Democratic Party. So when we look at this, what I'm seeing here is, first of all, these people live under delusions of grandeur. Eric Holder does not speak on the behalf of the vast majority of this country. The country's pretty evenly split by, I would think, left versus right, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with liberal and conservative. I think we should look at things from a realistic standpoint, and is it effective? Take, for instance, this is a plug-in, and it's funny because a lot of these plug-ins, they used to be, and I'm not an electrician, but it used to be directional. You could plug it in this way, but if you turned around this way, you couldn't get it in. A lot of these are not that way now. So I may say it goes in this way, and you may say, if you're liberal, it goes in this way. Well, there may be a reason why it goes one way versus the other. First of all, we need to research to figure that out, because if that's the way it goes, because the electricity flows that way, an electrician who's a subject matter expert says it goes that way, well, then it doesn't matter what our political ideology is or what we want. It's the way it works or the way it doesn't work. So that's the first thing we need to figure out when it comes to solutions. Secondly, if it doesn't matter one way or the other, as long as we get it done and we get it in there and we get it plugged in, that's all that matters. Third, if we don't have the right outlet for this to go into, well, now we're even in a bigger problem, because we got to find the right extension or the right adapter for this thing, and then that could be another argument. Basically, what I'm getting at here is, when we look at the reality of what's effective in this country, the vast majority does not follow Eric Holder, or it doesn't follow the Republican or Democrats. The vast majority of the people in this country are snowed by the two ideologies that say it either goes this way or it goes that way, when in fact there is no vast majority of the population that feels one way or the other. There's a vast majority of the population from one day to the next that are duped into believing this is the way it is or that is the way it is. That's the real vast majority. The majority of free Americans that are freeborn, that don't wake up and insist that the government is held to a standard, that the government and its officials are punished far beyond what a new person, an E3 in the military, would be punished for doing wrongdoings. That's what Americans should be insisting on. And then the vast majority would be able to be measured in what they feel and what they don't feel. The vast majority of people, first and foremost in this country, don't know politics from the hairs that are coming out of the end of their nose. All they know is this tickles, like my mustache is tickling or something, and so they'll go and they'll clip that out in the mirror. Otherwise, they don't pay it any attention. And that's the way Americans are when it comes to freedom and politics. They don't know it, they don't concern with it unless something starts to happen that eliminates their ability to live their life normally, and then all of a sudden they're up in arms about it. Or if it's all over TV, they decide that they have an opinion and that their opinion is, well, it's the truth because that's what they say, and I identify with that. Well, that's the BS. So Eric Holder, not only does he not speak for the majority of the Americans, but the reality is the majority of Americans don't know what they feel, quite frankly. But I do take this as a threat personally, because I am, if we have to look at conservative and liberal when it comes to politics, I do fall more into the conservative side of definitions of things, even though I call myself a realist. But we have to use those definitions to an extent, because those are the only two political parties there are. And until we outlaw those and get rid of them, which may never happen, we're going to have to choose one or the other. I don't like that, but that's the way that it is. So I take this as a direct threat. He's saying Republicans in Congress, but here's the thing, folks. The Republicans in Congress, if they were doing exactly what the Constitution says, Congress is a direct reflection of us and who we put in Congress. So Eric Holder is directly threatening the people by threatening Congress. And I find that very, very, very alarming. Any attempt to remove Bob Mueller will not be tolerated. It doesn't say if he's innocent and Bob Mueller hasn't done it. And there's clear evidence that the people that Bob Mueller chose are highly leftist, highly corrupted, and think that they can do and say whatever they want in order to facilitate who they want in office. Now, that sounds very similar to what they accused the president of when it comes to the Russian collusion, which I've not bought for 5 seconds since they started this nonsense. So I find this very, very offensive. I find it very dangerous, and I find it very telling for the deep state, which Eric Holder is one of the speakers and power brokers in the deep state. Very dangerous individual. Now, here's what else he said. This is a couple days later. This is on the 17th. This is 3 days later. Absolute red line. The firing of Bob Mueller or crippling the special counsel's office. If removed or meaningfully tampered with, there must be mass, popular, and he throws this in, peaceful support of both. The American people must be seen and heard. They will ultimately be determinative. So, again, Eric Holder thinks that he's speaking for the American people. He is not speaking for the American people. He's not speaking for me. He's not speaking for anybody that I know. I don't know any liberals, and I live in Manhattan, that wake up and say, if you want to know how I feel, refer to Eric Holder. Nobody. Eric Holder has become a legend in his own mind. He was a disaster of an attorney general. He was and is a deep state member who does not care about America. Yes, exactly. Who just said this on Twitter, like he cares about American people, fast and furious. He was directly responsible for one of our Border Patrol officers, Officer Terry, being killed. This guy, Eric Holder. So I will tell you this. Hopefully this word will get to Eric Holder. You're nobody now. You're just another civilian with big Twitter muscles. And I'll tell you something, Eric Holder. I don't take kindly to you threatening me or the country or the citizenry or the president or Congress. And I don't take lightly those threats. And if you ever come in front of me and you say those same words, well, there's going to be a whole nother type of reaction that you're going to get. I don't take kindly to people threatening me. And I'll tell you why. First off, I'm not some keyboard tough guy. I believe if a threat is presented to me, an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury, or in this case, tampering with our federal government, and direct threats to me saying that there's a red line here, direct threats to the Congress, which represents me, and says that that we should be forewarned. As far as I'm concerned, Eric Holder, you come at me and you say something like that to my face, I'm going to take that as an imminent threat to the loss of my freedoms, to potential loss of life, and I take that as a violent threat. And I'll deal with that threat if you come and do that in my face. So, yeah, you're doing this on Twitter, and you're using your keyboard muscles, and there's only a limited amount of stuff we can do. And this is my response to you, right? I'm not going to take it sitting down and just lying around and say, oh, that's just, one guy's opinion. No, you are somebody who is a public figure who held an office of the highest level in law enforcement, although I've never considered an attorney law enforcement, but in the DOJ as the attorney general, and you want to turn around and threaten the United States, that's no different than the guy who's the super in my building who wants to turn around and threaten me. It's going to be a bad day for him. It's going to be a bad day for you, Eric Holder, because I'm telling you, the American people are only going to put up with this for so long. And it's really not President Trump. It's only been in office for a year. You and President Obama and Loretta Lynch and Susan Rice and all the rest of these weirdos, the Clintons, all these people that are associated, show so many signs of nefarious behavior. You all are the ones that are the real national security threat. You all are the ones that are where a red line should be drawn by the American people and by Congress, saying you are no longer in Washington, D.C., and a red line is drawn, and you do not cross this red line. And one of those things, I think, should be with threats to the American people. I believe in freedom of speech, but when you have the ability to rally millions of people and you threaten Congress and you threaten the American people, That is a red line that should not be crossed, and I think that should be looked at just the same as if any other American went into a theater and said, fire, or there's an active shooter, run, and there wasn't, and people get trampled and hurt. They're going to be held liable, and the Constitution is not going to protect their speech. And I think in this case, if this amounted to any type of protest where anybody was hurt or property was ruined or any type of injury to the national security, Eric Holder should be held responsible. And just the same as if he came up and threatened my life, he should get a proverbial punch right to his face, and his weak little legs and his weak little body should be taken off to jail to rot for the rest of his life. I don't take people threatening my country and my freedom and the freedom of liberals. I don't take it lightly, whether you're conservative or liberal. I don't take that lightly at all. And that's how I feel about Eric Holder. I really hope this gets to him, and I hope he realizes that the majority of this country has long since forgotten about him, and the majority of people that I know don't give two craps what he has to say, and they feel the same way that I do, that if he keeps opening his mouth, he's, as far as they're concerned, he's a actual threat, a direct threat to our national security and our freedom. That's the way the majority of people that I know. And I don't know the majority of people in this country, but I do know a lot of people, and that's the way that they feel. Let's go to the C block. So I really love it when husband and wife get on here and they both agree, and there's two people on here that I know. I won't say y'all's names, but beautiful people, amazing people. They got a great family, dog lovers, and I love when they get on and they're saying the same thing, because I don't know if they're in the same place. He's a pilot and's always all over the place, and I love, you guys know who I'm talking about, and on Facebook, and I love when people get on here and they're talking about the definition of what's happening is treason. I believe it skirts it very close. Very close. Of course, attorneys would argue that, I'm sure. And the missus is saying revolution. Look, I remember when I first started hosting Sean Hannity's radio show for him, guest hosting that, and I used to I love it the way it sounds on his show when Scott Shannon says, "Welcome to the revolution." I was like, I don't really like that, because I don't want to feel like we need a revolution in this country. I like to call it a revolvolution, but the reality is I don't care what you call it. We're getting closer and closer to the American people banding together, left and right, where we say we're just sick of Washington, D.C., of Hollywood, of the ruling elite, of the educated elite. All of these people, whether you realize it or not, have basically ruined our country and stolen the true freedoms that we have in this country. You can't carry your Second Amendment. The Second Amendment in the Constitution. It wasn't like the 50th Amendment, right? It's the Second Amendment. It talks about your freedom to bear arms for protection against a tyrannical government. The ruling class, the educated elite from all the Harvard and Columbia schools and all these different schools, the political insiders, the political machine, the establishment, Hollywood, and the people who have the most notoriety in this country, they're all leftist. And they all run in the same circles. These activist groups, these punk Antifa and Black Lives Matter thugs who like to go around and which I'm going to talk about this tomorrow, this Linda Sarsour, who likes to go around and set up, protests for women's empowerment. Yet when she ran a company, was allowing particular females to be sexually harassed and violated in a lot of ways. She's trash. but she's right in the same ballpark as the Colin Kaepernicks and the P. Diddy's and all these other loudmouth, small-brain, leftist, communist, elitists that think because they have a platform that they should be recognized as being smarter, or because they have a degree that they know more than the subject matter experts, or because they get put on mainstream media that they automatically know more than you. No, not true. It's not true. And your freedoms have been stolen from you. The Second Amendment, as I was going to say, because of these people, you can't even carry a gun with you wherever you want to go. You can't carry it in cities like where I live. You can't even own it in cities like where I live in Manhattan. We have allowed these people to take away from us our freedoms. And when we look at this president and one of the things that he represents when it comes to foreign policy and national security, just like these people that have limited our freedoms, they have also gone out and weakened our national security. Same people. They take away your right to be empowered, and then they go to foreign nationals and they give them the power of our national security. There's no strength in the past, no strength in our dialogue, no strength in our diplomacy, no strength in our military maneuvers. It's gotten to a point where small factions of terrorist groups thumb their nose at us. We got this weirdo in North Korea who's for 50 years, this crazy cult family has duped and enslaved an entire citizenry in North Korea. And for some strange reason, none of the administrations for 50 years have dealt with this person in strength. They continue to allow this weirdo and his group to grow bigger and bigger to the point now where they're playing and toying with nuclear weapons. They have literally taken our strength away from us as citizens to be empowered, and then removed the strength of the country to be empowered and handed that over to other people. And what I saw when I watched President Trump's foreign policy speech is this, and this is really all I need to say about this, okay? Strength. He is, whether he carries through this or not, I don't know. But one thing he's definitely doing is he is projecting strength. And that's more than I've seen in my lifetime. Reagan projected strength. I will give him that. President Bush projected it here and a little there. That's Bush 43. After 9/11, he projected strength. Very quickly, that fell away. We did the mother of all battles. We went in and started the war on terror, and then it just fell away. President Obama completely weakened our national security, and at the same time increased spying on Americans, increased the gun control. The liberals and the Democratic Party completely destroyed Baltimore, completely destroyed Chicago. When I hear the president speak, I don't know why you're asking me how on Twitter, but when we listen to the president speak, what we see is somebody who, first and foremost, is in tune with the reality of what's wrong with this country. And we see somebody that's in tune with the reality that this diplomacy without strength is nothing. It's empty diplomacy. What I'd love to see is the president, and I know he could do this, is to change the Great American Seal back to the point where the eagle is staring at the arrows, not the olive branch. The olive branch is something that I believe should be held in reserve. You want to come at the United States, then you're going to deal with us in a military fashion. You're going to deal with us because we're going to be on offense. But we'll hold diplomacy in reserve. And if you decide you want to talk, we'll talk it out. But right now the way it is, and that used to be the way it was, but then what they did was some leftists came along and they changed the eagle's head to where now it's peering towards diplomacy first. It's looking at the olive branches and it holds the arrows in reserve. I don't know if you ever paid close attention to that Great Seal of the United States, but that's what's happening. So now they're saying if you come to the United States, well, we're going to extend an olive branch and we're going to try to talk you out of it. And then maybe if diplomacy doesn't work, maybe we'll come at you with the arrows. teaching your kids that that's the way to deal with a bully. You know what's going to happen? They're going to get punched. They're going to get their lunch money stolen. They're going to get humiliated. You teach your kid, you take them, learn martial arts. You teach them how to fight. You teach them how to be confident and strong and that size doesn't matter when you're fighting. And you teach your kid also respect others. Don't throw a punch unless you're threatened. You know, if you have an imminent threat of serious bodily injury, then you fight. But you fight before that imminent threat makes its move. You'll have a kid that is never bullied. That kid may be bullied once, but ain't going to happen again. But if you teach your kid, listen, if somebody comes up to you and they threaten you and they push you and they tell you they're going to punch you, well, you know what you should do? You should go ahead and offer them your lunch money and tell them, hey, I want to be your friend. Let me buy you lunch. You know what's going to happen? You're going to have to buy that person, like kid's going to have to buy that person lunch every single day. And then the kid's going to punch them anyway and say they want that lunchbox or they want their scarf when it's cold. Or they're going to punch them and take their girlfriend from them when they get older. See, that never stops. You have to face whatever foreign entity that there is, an issue that they bring to you. I'm not saying you got to war with everybody, but you walk into the room with command presence and you make it known that you don't play games. You don't play games. We play too many games. And part of that is because we hold our force, our strength in reserve. Look, I'm not saying America should be bullies, but we should be confident in our strength. We should protect our freedom with everything that we have and never allow a foreign entity to intimidate us, to push us around, to invade our shores, or to subvert us, which is happening already. We should stop that. And I will go even a step further. We need to define what ally means, all right? Because we're saying this person is our ally and that person is our ally. I call BS on that, all right? There's a lot of people that say they're our allies, but they don't. What do they do for us? Why aren't they getting stronger? I'll tell you why. Because a lot of these other countries in the world, they're run by corrupt entities. And those people get richer. They never work. They pass it down through their families and generation to generation. They take our money. They use our money for a little bit of defense, and then they spend our money on themselves. And that's a game that we need to stop playing, because we can jump up and defend anybody anytime. There's not a real need anymore to give these countries billions and billions of dollars. I don't think that we should. Look, I'm a huge supporter of Israel. I believe Israel and the United States are basically one and the same, I believe. And I believe in Israel, but I don't believe in giving Israel billions of dollars. Israel's a pretty rich country, and there's a lot of Israelis, a lot of Jewish people in this world that are amongst some of the richest in the world. And Israel is profoundly strong. Why are we giving Israel so much money? Why did we give over $1 billion back to Iran in some kind of apologetic way? Why do we constantly take taxpayer monies and divvy that stuff out? I'll tell you why. One, because the State Department is ran by idiots that's their piece of the pie, and so they run it as though that's their own little kingdom, and so they think that they're very, very important. A lot of these government agencies make themselves out to be more important than they really are. And then you have other ones like the FBI that's a very important agency, but you get people like Robert Mueller, who's this special counsel guy. I served under Robert Mueller in the FBI, who completely decimated the FBI and turned it into an intel gathering agency rather than a law enforcement agency. So now the FBI is not even good at what it was made to be, which is a federal law enforcement agency to investigate federal crimes, stop criminal organizations, police the government. Can't even do that anymore. Can't even do that. The other problem, though, is that the State Department works closely with the CIA, and so they work, again, themselves. They want to keep themselves employed, so they work closely with a lot of these different governments. And I understand keeping a thumb on the pulse of all these. Actually, it's 2 fingers. You wouldn't use your thumb. Medical stuff there. But yeah, their fingers on the pulse of the countries around this world, so they stay embedded with the State Department. They're one of the reasons why this money is funded to these other countries, almost like a payoff in a lot of ways, so that we have a stance over there. But I'm not so sure if that's really wholly needed anymore. I think we need to take a serious look at how we do work overseas and how we fund these different groups. And we need to stop being everybody's piggy bank, I believe. And all that stems from a perception of strength that we have lost and we're regaining. And I think that our country, led by this president, and hopefully a stronger and increasingly empowered citizenry, will stand against politics as usual and will start to increase our strength when it comes to foreign affairs. So that's about it. I think that's good. Make sure you share the show on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter, subscribe, follow, and like my page on Twitter and YouTube or Facebook, and then subscribe to me on YouTube. You're going to see scroll across here on the bottom the GoFundMe page. Nobody's really, there's like one person here giving 20, one person giving 50. Listen, everybody want to give me a Christmas present? Donate to the GoFundMe page before Christmas. Let's increase this so that January, I think, is going to be a planning stage for going out on tour and getting this book out there. So right off the bat, don't forget about the GoFundMe page. Again, I don't even get paid for these books until next year. So there it is, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Everybody should get together in a show of solidarity, and we should have 200-300 people all at once be donating over the next couple of weeks, $20 to $50 each. And then we'll have plenty of cash to go out on the road in late January, early February, and take this book out there. Now, here's another thing. If anybody that watches this show is connected to a university, let me know and see if we can set up where I come to a university and speak. If you have a Republican group, if you have any type, you're associated with any type of group that is looking for speakers, let me know. You can DM me. You can email me on Facebook. You can go to jonathantgilliam.com. You can email me through that. Just put on in the title speaking, and then that way I'll hone in on that thing. But we need, we have enough people in this group, the CQRF, where we could continue to make this book grow and get me out on the road with Rico, going to these different locations so that I can go out and help teach what's in this book. I would do, and this is where the GoFundMe page comes in. If I'm funded enough, I will do for smaller group speeches. But by and large, we're talking about getting out on the road and going places where they are sponsored, where people pay for me to be there. And if we have people who want to sponsor that and you own a company, then we need to look at that as well. I think that's about it. And if you haven't gotten your copy of the book, get it. Remember, for those of you, I keep getting emails. Don't worry. What happened with those coins when I first started this show is not going to happen here. I am going to get these books to you. I still have those coins, by the way. I just got, maybe one day I'll sit down and have the time to actually send those out. But with the books, Jim DeLong is ordering books. We got to wait for those books to be here. I told you they would be backlogged. Barnes & Noble just ordered more books. Amazon just ordered more books. Barnes & Noble is completely out online. You can also go to walmart.com and you can order it there. And Barnes & Noble, somebody said they went into Sioux Falls, Idaho, I believe it was, and the Barnes & Noble there said that they didn't carry the book, that they refused to order it. Now, that may have just been one jerk employee. I don't know. I may actually end up calling them and seeing what was up. But the fact is, this isn't a liberal or conservative book. This is a book about helping you empower yourself, gain awareness, and avoid attacks or know how to deal with them if you get in there. How to look at your life from an attacker's point of view so you can identify who, why, where, when, and how you could be attacked. If you haven't bought this book yet, go get it. It's not expensive. You're not going to break the bank. I challenge everybody on here. Buy one and send it to your congressman. Send it to your senator. There should be hundreds of these going to the president, so eventually he gets one of them. Do it. Do it, folks. Make this book a point that you're trying to show to these politicians that it's time to start empowering the American people. And it's as simple as laying it out like I do in this book, where it actually literally lays it out for you and how you can – there's like 5 steps that show you how that you can do this. It's very simple. So be patient. If you've donated to the GoFundMe page, be patient. We are going to be reaching out to you for your addresses. It's not going to happen immediately. I tried to set you up and for that and tell you that before. This isn't something that I'm going to rapidly get out. It's me. I'm a one-man show. So anything I do when I have to give away these things, it's going to take some time. So, but bear with me. We have a plan. We're going to be reaching out to you. We'll get your addresses, and we'll get these things on the road. And also, Billy Gibbons there from Vets Manufacturing. He's got books on sale. If you're in Billy, I think you're in Houston, so you can go to his place. They have books there. But also, Billy sent me a kind of a little first aid kit that I'm looking at, and I like it. It's small. It can fit in a woman's purse. And I want to continue to explore this where, for these purses where we can get some kind of armor thing that sits inside, light armor that sits inside of a purse. They definitely have them for backpacks. I'd like to see some more of these. I know that Billy is looking at jackets that can be worn, and when you combine those with some type of a first aid kit like that, and you get, let's say you cannot get away from these things. You go to work, and there's a potential anywhere. There's a possibility of an active shooter. You'll have this stuff now. You see somebody get a sucking chest wound. You could throw this sucking chest wound patch. It used to be called an Eshelman patch. I don't know what it's called now, and get them out of there. At the same time, you're going to have some limited body armor on your body that can repel quite a few of the rounds that might be slung at you by a bad guy. So let's just continue to look at that. Also, one of the other groups that I'm looking at to go on tour with, if I can, is the APHIS. That's the stores that you see on bases, on military bases. And I'd like to. We've got one that's going to be. It was going to be in December, but I got injured. So hopefully in January I'll get down to Norfolk, Virginia, Little Creek base where I was at, and we'll have a book signing, and we'll go from there. So that's about it. Anybody has any ideas, suggestions? Let me know. Again, eventually this show will get picked up. The Constitutional Quick Reaction Force will continue to grow, and we will become stronger and stronger and stronger. Let's go to the Truth Zone. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right. Hello, my mom is on here. I love her. So again, I want to thank Billy Gibbons for sending me that first aid kit so I could look at it. Thank you to Jody for the cookies and for the ornament. Thank you to everybody for continued prayers and concerns about my leg. It's healing. Man, it's painful. I don't recommend anybody get this injury. It sucks. So it, especially bad at nighttime for some reason. I don't know why that is, but cramps galore. So, but listen, enough about me. The GoFundMe page, which you see right here. This book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. This show, the experts that I present to you almost every weeknight. The experience that I've had over the years as a police officer, a Navy SEAL officer, a Federal Air Marshal, security contractor, an FBI special agent. Going into the media, learning how to do radio, learning how to do TV, now learning how the publishing world works. Everything I do is for a reason. And I don't know if you've recognized this about me. All right, I'm no genius. I can't even remember my own name sometimes. But what I am is a little bit of a savant when it comes to learning stuff. As you can see this, I learned, I didn't have anybody teach me how to set up the camera and do the lighting, how to work with this TV and get this steel work done back here and set up the production stuff and this lower third. I taught myself this by watching and observing what other people do. Now, I've learned this talent throughout my career of watching people and being taught how to watch people and how to pick up on things. When I went through SEAL training, like everybody else when you go through BUDS, I was relatively overwhelmed by a lot of the things that were happening around me. After I got through BUDS and I went through Ranger School, I was much more focused. The Ranger instructors could be yelling, other people would be cracking under the pressure, people would be confused. I was rock solid in my focus because I'd already experienced the stress level that they were experiencing in SEAL training. So I was able to just let the yelling and the pressure and the games of screwing with you wash over me so I could focus on the lesson I needed to learn and what they were asking for me so that I could be graded in any particular cycle of events that we were doing. And I apply that in everything that I've done. And here's the vision quest that we're on. I learned this. I learned about publishing. I learned about radio because I serve. I don't do this for myself. I by no means have gotten rich off this, folks. I have dedicated my entire life savings to this. And it's one of the reasons why it's an emotional thing for me. It's emotional because it's difficult, but it's also emotional when you commit yourself to being a part of this, to funding it, to spreading the word, to being a part of it on a nightly basis. I know, as well as Rich and Billy Gibbons and so many other people that are watching this that have served, whether in law enforcement or in the military, you cannot do this on your own. I have a vision. That vision was given to me by God about the reality of where this country is and where He wants it to be. And that's where we're taking it. My name is Jonathan Gillum. That's my dog Rico right over there. And this is The Experts. The truth has arrived. How many of you have ever been caught up in a terrorist attack? Probably not most of you. How many of you have ever had a sexual predator come after you? Maybe some of you. How many of you have ever been robbed or had something stolen? Probably a lot of you. How many of you have ever had a tire breakdown on the freeway and didn't realize until the car was broken down that you were under a threat? Probably a lot of you. How many of you have ever looked at your home from an attacker's point of view and said, if I was a pedophile, I would work my way into this family through the church or through some kind of parent-teacher organization or the scout program? Probably not a lot of you. How many of you have ever looked at around your home and realized that there are particular things that bad guys would want to steal? Maybe some of you. And how many of you have ever sat at work or in a movie theater or at a stadium and arena and said, right after you saw something on TV happen, and you said, this is a dangerous place. The possibility for danger is high. The probability, maybe the numbers aren't there that say that we could be attacked, but the possibility is high. How many of you have said that after an attack happened on television? Probably most of you. But let me ask you this. How many of you, the next time that you went to a movie or a theater or back to work, completely forgot about that threat, and you just fell right back into the game of, I'm here to be entertained, I want to be entertained, I'm not going to be concerned about anything else? Almost 100% of us, I've even done it. That is why I wrote this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. This book will eliminate your need to go to all these places and consistently try to figure out who would attack you, why they would attack you, where they would attack you, when that attack would happen, and how it would be carried out. Because the reality is, folks, there's actually very few attacks that could happen in any particular sector of your life. But one sector may be different than the other. You use this book. It'll teach you how an attacker thinks and how you can lay out a target package on every sector of your life so that when you go to a movie theater, every time you can say, I know of 3 ways an attack could happen here. If it's a shooter, I know that somebody could come in here and try to touch me. If you're a child or if you're a female in a sexual predator way, you know that in a movie theater there could be 2 to 5 different ways that you could fall victim of an attack, robbery, for instance. Once you figure that out and you chart it, every time you go to the movie theater, you have that attack package in your head and you don't have to worry about trying to figure it out. You'll already know and you'll already have a plan on how you're going to act. Maybe you'll go to the movie theater, you'll take a really bright flashlight with you, so in case somebody tries to do something, you shine it in their eyes and you get out of there. Or if you have to punch them in the face with it. Or if there's an attacker coming in and you hear gunshots, you know to get to the floor and start crawling as fast as you can towards the doorway. You already have that in your mind so that you will act, not react when it comes time to respond. That is why I wrote this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Get it.